Hey builders, ever worry about security slipping through the cracks, especially in your web apps? What if I told you there was a way to instantly boost your app's security when transferring confidential data, and it was hiding right under your nose? Today we're talking about the Firebase Authenticated User trigger. It's your secret weapon in BuildShip's arsenal for building bulletproof apps. Think seamless logins and watertight data security, all without compromising the unique and personalized experience your users love, plus avoiding a mountain of code. The Firebase Authenticated User trigger is used for securely initiating API calls, ensuring that only authenticated users can send requests to your endpoint. It uses an ID token, generated after the user signs in, to ensure that your API calls are fully authenticated, essentially acting as a secure bridge between your front-end builder, such as FlutterFlow, and your backend, BuildShip. This means that any data passed between the two is safeguarded by Firebase's robust authentication system. We'll be using FlutterFlow to build our UI in this example, but any front-end builder integrated with Firebase Authentication will follow a similar process. And it's so simple. You'll never do an API call the same way again. So let's jump in. Fire up BuildShip and let's start a new workflow. Under Add Trigger, Firebase Authenticated User. And here you'll enter your Firebase project ID. If you don't have an existing FlutterFlow project set up already, I'll show you how to go through that process. Let's just create a new project called Authentication. On this screen, we'll get FlutterFlow to set up Firebase on our behalf. We create the project, select a region, and sign in. While FlutterFlow is creating the project for us, let's enable authentication and create our user collection. We'll need to set up some initial pages. For now, let's just make these blank. This can be login and home. Once FlutterFlow has set up our Firebase project, we can come into Settings and Firebase and grab your Firebase project ID from here. Back in BuildShip, we'll add that in here. Now this trigger node works like any other REST API call, except it's got a few superpowers built in. For example, if we go in and have a look at what this node returns under the Output tab, you can see it returns the entire Firebase users object, specifically its UID, display name, email, and URL. Now we can use this to do a lot of things further on in our workflow, but let's just get it returning for now. So click on this link icon here and copy this URL because this becomes our API endpoint in FlutterFlow. There are really only a couple of things this API needs, and we put them in under header. The first is this content type application JSON, and the second is our authentication. Now this comes in as a token that we receive once the user is logged in, and we feed it in here as authorization bearer token. Now, we also need to add it in here as a variable. Don't forget to also go into response and test and ensure to click include, and then hit save. That'll make sure your authorization token is included with each API call. Now, let's implement a really simple way to authenticate our users. FlutterFlow has these great new things called flows. And there's a really simple authenticated user flow here that we can use. Let's add this to our project. Now, when the user hits the home screen, say we want to place an API call through to BuildShip. We do that in the exact same way we always would with any API call. And we feed in through this additional variable called token, which I've already set up. And you find it under the authenticated user flag under ID token. Now, before we deploy, let's just check that our initial entry page is login and our logged in page is home. Don't forget, you'll also need to set up authentication in Firebase. So you come into the Firebase console and click on authentication and get started. You'll need to enable one type of authentication. The most common and easiest is email and password. All right, now we have BuildShip set up, ready to receive our backend call, API calls set up in FlutterFlow, and the Firebase authentication all active. We can test this out. Hit the test button. Now back over in BuildShip, you'll remember that once we've logged in as an authenticated user, we've passed a token through to BuildShip. Now let's go and have a look in the BuildShip logs. Here you can see we've got a return value, an authenticated user, that's their email, that's the sign-in provider, and here's our user ID. Now we can do so much more than just return those values. We can also pass a number of other variables through this same API call and then use them further on in our workflow. For example, what if we wanted to pass some variables securely from our FlutterFlow project through to BuildShip so we could use them later in a workflow? Well, that's simple. We just turn this into a post request. Headers stay the same. Body becomes JSON. And we feed those exact variables in as JSON. Say we want to check if a user has been onboarded. You simply write this out as JSON. Hit save. To catch something like this back in BuildShip, we could write it to the console. And our value would be body.is onboarded. And here's our log message to console returning true. As always, this is just the tip of our authenticated and highly secure iceberg. Here are some advanced features you can explore. Dynamic access control. Implement rules based on user attributes like role or department to control access to different parts of your database or application dynamically. Customize user journeys. Tailor the user experience by using user data like preferences or past interactions to personalize content and features that you can build out in BuildShip. Integration with other Firebase services, such as utilizing the trigger to seamlessly integrate with cloud messaging or Firebase functions. These features can help you build more nuanced, secure, and user-friendly applications. We love hearing what our users are building with BuildShip, so let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more. Happy building.